Hey friends, welcome back. Now we are going to continue our Next.js series, and in this series we are creating this awesome NewsX website, and we are covering both basics and advanced feature of Next.js in this project. Right? We have covered all the basics and fundamental concepts of Next.js. Now we are doing code for our project, right? So in this video we are going to create an API to create the users, right? For that user we are going to use MongoDB collection, this NewsX database. In the last video we have created this collection, right? And we can store records of every user in this collection. I'm using MongoDB Atlas because it is very interactive interface. And if you want to use something else like your own MongoDB, local MongoDB database or Robo, whatever you prefer, you can go with it. But I'm using this MongoDB collection, MongoDB Atlas. Okay. So in the last video, we have created database and credentials and everything. In this video, we are going to create the API. So let's go and create, and we are using Mongoose. Let's do some UI update first. So here, instead of sign in, I'm gonna say sign up, and let's come to over here. Now the button is sign up. Also add one more input. So this is div, and let's copy this email. And here I'm gonna say name. Placeholder is going to be name, and text is going to be text. Type is going to be text, and also format this. So format document with prettier. Okay, now looks perfectly fine. Okay, readable. Okay, also we don't need this image. Why do we need to show a bootstrap image? Because that's nothing related to this. So this is our looking fine, right? Next thing what I want to do, let's remove this. You don't need. Here I'm going to apply a style, and I'm going to give a margin from top and bottom 50 pixel, from left right 0. Now it's fine. So name, email, and password we have. We can create the user. So our UI is ready. Now it's time to create the API. So here is our API, and let's create a folder, user, or you can create user.js if you want. Let's create a user folder, and then we'll create index.js. Okay. So here we are going to write some function API to handle the users. But before that, we need to create a MongoDB model, right? If you have ever used Mongoose, then you have to write a schema before writing and storing stuffs inside the MongoDB database. So let's go inside the lib, and not inside the lib, we'll create a folder over here. We'll say models, and within this model, we'll create a file user.js. So this is our user model, and here we are going to use const, and we'll say user schema equals to mongoose, and let's one for this mongoose, and here we'll say mongoose dot schema, and it takes an object, and here we need to define all the fields that's required for our database, for our collection. Okay, so I'll say name. I want a name, and that's required true, and required true. That's all. Length, you can specify the length. Length is going to be like at least 3, and required true. Next we have our also apply some validation like trim. By default, additional spaces will be removed. Next we are going to have email, and here email also we forgot to add type string. Okay, and here we're going to say type string, and here we'll say required true, and email has a valid expression, right? We don't have to specify length. And unique, I'll say true, required true, unique true. And then next we have password, and here type again string, and required true. Okay, and you can specify the length, alien length. No, no specific length we need, right? Name also we don't need a specific length. Password we don't need. User may have some variable lengths, right? So we'll see like minimum, maximum length, how we can specify, and required through password. Save. So here is our basic schema, and here we can say timestamps. Timestamps true. So timestamps true, and here we can say export default mongoose dot model, and here we'll give our name, that's a user or users, and or let's say user, and by default we'll create I think users, and here we'll pass user schema. Okay, so this is our MongoDB collection name. Here, apart from just unique, we have to also say indexing true, because this is going to be unique as well as this is going to work as an index for our records. Okay, and also here we'll say trim, that's true. Okay, save. So this is our basic schema design for the user, right? Now let's try and see it's working or not. So for that, let's go to the user index.js file, and here we're gonna write some default function, export default function handler. It takes request and then response. Okay, we'll use try, then catch error. If we got an error, then we'll handle the error. Okay, so here we're gonna say const, and we'll get some bodies, right? First we'll validate the request. It should be a get request, right? If, or I can do this before try. If request dot method post, request dot method equals to not equals to post, then it is a problem. Here we're going to return some error, right? So here we'll return error. So we are going to write some format, right? So that we are going to use every time whenever we return an error. So here we'll simply say create a folder with the name utils, and in this utils folder we'll create a file common.js. Okay, when this common.js, we'll define something like export const error handler equals to, here we get a data, what data we want to send, and then response, and then status code. So code by default for error, let's say 400, and here we're gonna say rest dot status, that is going to be code. Okay, here is something missing. So status code, and then JSON. Here we're gonna say has error, that's going to be true, and message, error message, that's going to be like data, and that's all. Save this. Let's go to our more pages API, insert the user index.js file, and here we're going to say error handler, and here we're going to define the message, like what are you going to say, here we'll say invalid request type, and then we'll pass the response. Okay, and if works fine, then we'll come to this try part, and here we can say wait and get db connect should give some hints. Okay, now let's import this db connect port from lib, and then we have db connect. So this is our connection request. If fails, then we'll come to the catch block, say error handler, and here we are going to send the data. that is going to be like whatever the error we got from the response from this connection request. And after that, here we're going to say response. And this is a connection request. But before connection request, we need to validate the data also. So we'll say const what data we are expecting in the request body, request dot body. And here we're going to say name, email, password. And we want to write some, again, a function to handle the validation, right? We don't want to do a validation for each field, right? So let's go to the common. And here we write explode const validate all once. And here, this is again a function, validate all once. And here we are getting like field name or object. So simply say fields, and we will use a for loop and then say let and key in fields. Okay, now if fields and then key, or we simply say yeah, fields and then key, okay, equals to empty. If it's an empty string, then we have to return response, right? Say return. So instead of return, that's not a good idea because we are using try catch, right? So we can say throw, and here we can say new, or basically error, right? So we'll pass the string over here. We'll say dollar, the key, that's a field name, required, right? If this happens before making any database call, okay? And now, and also let's attach chain property. We may have some spaces, right? So if that is empty, then throw error required. If throws error, then it will come over here. And if this function throws error, then it will come to the error handler block. Say validate all once and pass everything, name, email, and password. Or you can simply say request.body. Request.body. Okay. So we'll pass everything like that. If there is an error, then it will come to this block. Okay. But if there is no error, then it will create a database connection. Create DB connection. Once DB connection created and no error, then we'll continue with the process. Now here we'll use user like const user equals to new. We'll use the user model, and here it is. Okay, so we got this user. Let's make this thing into capital U. So here say user, and this again takes request dot body. Okay, so these are the variables name, email, password, and here we're gonna say user dot save, right? Advanced save user equals to await user dot save, right? If user dot save is fine, save user is not throwing any error, then it will continue. And here we'll say we need to write a response handler. So just like error handler, we'll write a response handler. So here instead we'll say response handler data response. Instead of code 400, default code will be 200, and has error false. And here we're gonna say body. The body will pass the data. Okay, now let's go to this user, and here we'll say response handler, and here data will pass save user, and then will pass response, and then request will be 201 because we have created a user, right? Otherwise, else will throw an error handler, and here we will say something wrong happened, right? Okay, just give a message. Something wrong, something went wrong. Chances of going to this is very less. If this passes, means definitely this will pass. Something went wrong, and then pass the response and save this. So this is, we have created an API to create the user, right? Now let's see if it's working or not. So let's go to the postman, and instead of post, we'll say user. And okay, let's rename this thing. Instead of saying API's user, we'll give it a name like sign up request. Okay, save. We'll go user, instead of user, we'll say sign up. And here we are gonna say name Sanjay. Email is going to be like Sanjay at the rate webscript.info. Password is going to be, let's see that fail empty and see error is working or not. Send the request, and there is something wrong, 500 internal server error because module build failed, and module build failed. Await isn't allowed in non-async function. So let's make this async. Now let's send the request. So here we have got an error, has error true, error message, password required. Let's remove this name field, email field. Now we have got error, has error true, and then email required. Okay, so let's give the email Sanjay at the rate webscript.info and password 123456. Okay, let's send it, and we have got this from the MongoDB database, right? So this worked fine. Means this executed successfully this line, and because of that we came over here and send whatever the response we got from the MongoDB. So here it is like Sanjay email password 123456 created at updated at. If you go and check the database, here it is users, right? And this is our first user. But if you notice, the password is 123456 and this is visible. Anyone can identify this, and we should not return the password, right? So we'll go and delete this and create a password. We'll do hashing, password hashing. Okay, for that we need to install a library. Let's install that. So here we're gonna say npm install, and I can save bcrypt. Yes, bcrypt. And let me show you the documentation of bcrypt. Bcrypt. Okay. So here we have with promises, and this is a then, so we can use a promise, right? We're good to go. So bcrypt is installed, or it's use the bcrypt. Okay, so before sending things to the database, we'll say const and hash password that is equals to wait, and bcrypt dot hash, and let's import the bcrypt from crypt. Okay, bcrypt, cool. So bcrypt, and here we require the hash. Here we'll say plain password, so request dot password, and then salt is required, salt rounds. So let's give a smaller number, so the algorithm takes so much time, right? So let's give 8 smaller number, and this is our hash password generated. And here we are going to say request.body. So we'll split this request.body and override the password property. Say password is hash password. Okay, save. And once the user created, and will be here like save user, we'll delete the password, right? So we'll say const and underscore user equals to, or user doc, because when we every row, every data inside the collection is nothing but a document. They will say or save a user dot, it provides a function doc, save user doc, and here we got user doc. And now let's delete that, like delete pass user doc, delete user doc dot password. This property will be deleted from here, and then we'll pass user doc. Okay, now let's try this stuff, it's working or not. Let's send the request, and we have got some error. And what's that? So here we have got an error, and that's overwrite model error, right? Cannot overwrite user model. So once the user model instantiated, you cannot compile it again and create the user model again. So what is happening? I already told you the architecture in Next.js is a bit different compared to the Express. In Express, every request goes from your root file, your main file like index.server.js or server.js. But here for every request, you have to connect and you have to identify the database. So in that case, how we can solve this, I don't know. It may be a bug, it can be fixed later via MongoDB. But every time when we do, we'll have to say mongoose model equals to the object. Okay, now let's quit and rerun this. So it's running now. Let's send the request. And it's taking time. So again, there's a problem. Default model is not a function. Okay, so yes, there's a few things we need to check. Mongoose dot models dot user. So this is our name, right? If that exists, then only we'll create a new one. Otherwise, then it's fine. Let's kill this. And so once the user created, then we don't have to reinitialize. Like, I don't know, it's a bug or something, but this is how I figured it out. I have done Google aloud and found the solution in GitHub. So again, we got the error. Mongoose model is not a function. Mongoose.model is not a function. So it's a models, but something wrong. So according to the document, like let's initialize an object over here, new Mongoose schema, and let's try to make this. Okay, I guess this is models. Okay, we have got something important like hazard true, error message, nothing. Ping Mongoose connection. Mongoose connection. Hazard true, and what's the error? So hazard true. Sign up. Something wrong. Let's try. Save user. We fix that error. Let's see the terminal. And there's nothing like that. Okay, there is a problem. Press dot body. Press dot body dot password. Password. Has error true, but what is that error? Save this, and now let's go to the Postman, send the request, and we have got this email. This is fine. Also come over here and hash password, and change the email Oh, fine. Send the request. It has error too. Let's see the terminal. So here is our hash password, save user, and there is a mistake actually. Okay. So the problem was here. This doc and is not a function. If you want a document, you just have to do underscore doc. That's all. And let's remove this. Let's remove this user doc and then delete the password and save. Let's try it again. The different user. Okay. Let's send the request. And yay, it worked. So we have got the body, has error false. We got the body, name, email, ID, right? ID of the user. So this API is working fine. In the next video, we will implement this API with our interface. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Have a nice